Every time you do something fun, you got to break it down, see if you can do it again, see if it was the right thing to do. We are breaking down this draft with Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest here on Locked On Chiefs.
From the land of the free and the home of the Chiefs, this is the Locked On Chiefs podcast.
Welcome back, Chiefs Kingdom. We appreciate you being here. We are brought to you today by FanDuel. They are on it. You can get $250 back in bonus bets right now if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. Go check them out. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make another Locked On show your next listen, especially if you want to find out what's going on the other teams in the AFC West or who's coming up after them. If the Ravens are ravening, because they are, we'll get to that. But we have a lot to break down. There are some risks in what has just happened. We're going to go over them later in the show. We're going to talk about the best use of capital coming up in a little bit as well. But because Matt Derrick from Chiefs Digest is here, the editor-in-chief at large and around the world of Chiefs Digest and Chiefs Digest here on YouTube, as well as 41 is the mic, he is here, and he's going to give us his insight that I cannot give you because I was not there, Matt. How are you? Have you recovered?
I think I have. I made it through mostly Monday. I thought I was doing well Tuesday. I did have to take a nap on Tuesday, so I'm slowly but surely getting there. I think I'm back in one piece and ready to fall apart again during rookie minicamp.
It's right around the corner, right? Hey, that's what comes.
Just a couple of days away, unfortunately.
So I thought, honestly, the draft went, I think, as well as I could have expected in this class. That, again, was not top-heavy in any way. The thickest around the middle, kind of built like me. That's the way this draft class sorted out. First impression, just from seeing the whole thing through the weekend, the tension in the building, the thoughts in the building, I don't know. If you had a vibe check across the whole weekend, what would it be?
I mean, professional competence, I think is probably about the best way I can put it. There was no drama. I mean, everything seemed inside the facility, at least, and as close as we're able to get to the war room, which is the media workroom for the most part. And then we get obviously Brett Veach, Andy Reid, the scouts came down to talk to us. So as close as we can get, but I tell you what, I mean, the Chiefs just kind of exuded happiness and, like I said, just professional competence all weekend. Only one pick that I think they had any really level of stress about. I think a lot of the picks that they were able to get were guys that they really liked, at spots that they wanted to get them. Maybe only two real surprises for them as the weekend unfolded that they kind of had to maybe scramble and adjust for a little bit. But I think that this draft, I'm with you. I think it just about went as well as the Chiefs could have expected, and as far as them getting exactly the needs addressed that they wanted to address.
I mean, to me, it just felt like check boxes up and down the pad, like no stone unturned. I'm interested to see what you think of those two maybe shifts or things that they had to dodge around, because they accomplished so much of the wish list as well as providing some gas for the future. What were the cautious points?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt. I mean, the one area where they were probably the most stressed out a little bit was in the second round, and as far as addressing defensive tackle, because that was the one position that Brett Veach and his staff felt like was the weakest. That there was a line after which that it really kind of dropped off as far as their needs go. And Omar Norman-Lott was the dividing line. I mean, that was the player that above and below they were comfortable with above. After what came after Norman-Lott, they really weren't comfortable with it after that. And part of that is that they were looking for a specific type. They wanted a tenacious 3-tech pass rusher with a high win rate. So it's Omar Norman-Lott. Now, would they have rather have gotten somebody that might be viewed as a potential starter? Sure. And maybe Norman-Lott will play into that. I mean, right now they're envisioning him as a rotational edge, a rotational piece inside. And that's exactly what they should. I mean, this is, and even though there's not a really ton of concern from the Chiefs as far as the snap count goes, taking a guy who I don't think ever played more than 235 defensive snaps in a season and bumping that up to 500 or 600, you're going to get diminished return. So they're probably going to have to, bring him along slowly from that standpoint. But for year one, what are they looking for? They're looking for a rotational piece inside to be a interior pass rusher, and that can provide them with production. So in that terms, they got him. And that was the difference between, say, a guy like that I was really high on, like Ty Robinson, who I think maybe went just after Norman-Lott or a few picks after. But, I would have included him in too. The Chiefs didn't really talk about him as far as being somebody that they were looking at, but Norman-Lott was the line. And so if they needed to jump up to get another tackle or even to get Norman-Lott, I think they would have. But that was the point where they were kind of, worried a little bit. And then the other position was running back. They wanted to address running back in the first 5 rounds because that's where they thought that the depth really was. And then they had a chance to get Jeffrey Bossa in the 5th round. That's where they would have taken a running back, I think, if they had a chance. But Bossa was just too good of a player for them to pass up. So they grabbed him. And then it was, once there started to be a run on running backs, there was a little bit of, I got the sense of, should they jump back into the 5th round or jump back into the 6th round to get a running back? And then once, obviously, they got into the 7th round and Rashard Smith, the guy that they had a 5th round grade on, is sitting out there. They were able to make the move and get the guy they wanted. So those were at least the two spots and the 2 positions that there was a bit of stress around this club, but they still managed to get players that they really like at both those positions.
Well, I think that's what it comes down to. It's about fit and projection, right? So those 2 guys in that space, I think both have a role to play. It's not, as you said, starter level. It is specific as to what the scheme is and what their role can be in it. That, I think, is an appropriate use of draft capital. What my question becomes is, how did the whole thing stand out to you? What is the best use of this year's capital? And it might be in the future. We're going to hit that coming up next. The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel is giving away new customers an incredible way to get into the action right now. When you join FanDuel and you place a first bet of $5, you can earn up to $250 in bonus bets if that bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes it easy no matter what season it is. Now that March Madness is over, we're moving it on to the NBA. It's going to be baseball, and then we are going to finally get back to ball on the field for the NFL. From 3-pointers to steals to assists to making those kicks, it's all here, and your chance is at FanDuel. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. You can find more at ChiefsDigest.com for Matt. You can find me over at NFL 33. We have a piece dropping today, so make sure you check that out. And I'm at RGR Football. You know that. If you just want the retrospective on this draft class, go get the draft guide. It's still out there at RogueAPC.com. Use the code LOCKEDON, LOC, because you're late. I'm just telling you. Late is okay. Some of the late picks in this draft might be some of those that pay off the most, because getting value and using capital to do it is the name of the game. And I do feel, while I like some of the players, I like most of the players, it's the value at which they got them. I felt like this was a very strictly disciplined, willing to wait it out, get the value where you're at kind of draft. Even if they had to trade up, Matt, would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. I mean, and it's really remarkable when you think about it from what you mentioned earlier, which is that the Chiefs went down their checklist and, were able to get the needs that they wanted to get met. And I don't think that the only real pick that I think anybody can make an argument that, like I said, might be a borderline stretch was Omar Norman-Lott. Some people were really high on him. Some people were not. So your mileage may vary about whether or not that was a value pick or a reach. It's probably, mixed opinions. But I think certainly thereafter, I mean, everything, Gelati, Williams, Royals, Bossa, Smith, I mean, all of those guys I think were really good value picks. And even Josh Simmons in the first round. I mean, even with the risk and those considerations, again, a player that a lot of people thought could and would go earlier, and if not for the injury, would certainly have probably been a top 10, maybe even a top 5 pick. So yeah, I have a hard time arguing the value of any of these picks.
I think the thing that I'm most intrigued about, and let me be clear, Omar was picked exactly in the range that I had him. I don't think it was an extreme value. He didn't fall, and it certainly wasn't a reach. I would argue with anyone who deems it that way. I actually had Ashton a whole round lower, nearly anyway, 25 or so picks. So I do think that was an interesting use of capital. I can't complain. It's still in the same round. They had the fit. But the one for me that is the best use of capital to actually put and be in position to use that 5th round pick by acquiring it from the Eagles, knowing that you have one guy you're targeting, one guy. Should something have gone awry and Josh Simmons goes off the board, they are now in a Clyde Edwards-Helaire situation. So to have that calm, to reach a deal with Howie Roseman, who does a lot of deals, but let's be honest, I felt like that was still, despite everything, to get the player and the extra pick at one maneuver, that was my value of the draft. How did you see it?
Yeah, I mean, when you consider that, when you consider what was generally universally a top 5 linebacker in this group, and you get him for free. I mean, literally for free. I mean, the Chiefs were not taking anybody at 31 that the Eagles were taking. That trade, for the 5th round pick, they just, because the Eagles were obviously concerned that somebody might be making an offer to the Chiefs to move up to that spot and take Campbell. That was the impetus for Howie Roseman saying, I can't let this happen. So I'm going to call up Brett, make sure it doesn't happen. And all Brett wanted to know was offense or defense. I'm curious if Howie had said offense, if the deal goes through. It might not. But with the Eagles going, defense, and hey, Howie Roseman wanted to make sure he got his guy. He had plenty of draft resources because that's what Howie does. I mean, he makes deals and piles up resources. So he had the extra. I think the Eagles had 4 5th round picks. So it's not really a big loss for them, but for the Chiefs, a free pick. Literally, you just got a player of Jeffrey Boss's caliber given to you for free, just for waiting one pick to take the guy you were going to take anyway. And now you're going to pay Josh Simmons a little bit less money.
Right.
I mean, it's a perfect scenario for Brett Veach.
Yeah, I love the way that worked out. Boss was LB5 on my board. I had him well above where he was selected. What do you see his role, and is that value and that plug and play able to change things down the line? Maybe not necessarily this year, but in 27, certainly in 28.
Yeah, that's where, it probably is a really big value because the Chiefs view him as a day one ready player. And again, the Chiefs love versatile players, and Boss has got that absolute versatility. He came to campus in Oregon as a safety, got moved to linebacker as a freshman, played every position at linebacker, finished up as the Mike, generally projected as a weak side linebacker in the NFL, and that's where the Chiefs are planning on using him for now. Does he have middle capability? So, you've got Nick Bolton signed for 2 years. Can he could be a possible Mike linebacker 3 years from now? Quite possibly. I mean, the Chiefs will test him. They'll see if he's got that caliber, because this is something that you and I talked about before, Ryan. It's the Chiefs. Why could you not let Nick Bolton go? And why was he worth that value? And why was he worth paying to keep? Because Steve Spagnuolo can't do what he does without Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton calls everything, and he can make adjustments. And to be honest, I mean, Steve Spagnuolo is not going to say it publicly, but I'll say it for you. I mean, Drew Tranquill is good. He's not that good. He's not on that level as far as, this defense. And hey, it's no knock against Drew Tranquill. It's just that Nick Bolton's been around here longer, and he's learned everything, and he knows how Spags thinks. And if Drew Tranquill had 4 years in the system, maybe he'd be in the same spot. Maybe in a couple of years after learning from Nick Bolton, maybe Jeffrey Bossa is going to be in that spot. So that's why you keep Nick Bolton, but Bossa as both a short-term solution now, as far as, being a guy that you can play it down the weak side. You don't know what's going to happen with your linebackers going forward. Drew Tranquill's getting up there, and he's in the tail end of his contract. Leo Chenal is going to be a potential free agent here pretty soon. So, Bossa helps out a lot, both short-term and long-term. He can play now, and he's going to be a 4-phase special teamer day one for Dave Tope.
I completely agree with that. And I think that value is part of the overall class that we will look back at in a couple of years and say, hey, you got a contributor, maybe a starter right there in the 5th. They might have gotten one just before that as well. A lot of one-year contracts at the wide receiver spot. Jalen Rolls is a whole grade below where I had him on the board. I thought that was a really nice pickup that should be a good fit and actually expands, I think, the last ditch effort. If they're going to try to take stuff away with the big three, you now have Travis Kelce in the middle, and you have, I think, an ideal slot guy that can take advantage of what defense would give them. How do you like the fit?
Yeah, that's interesting because, one thing that gets talked about a lot, and I think it's relevant, is that, Royals having him with Rice and not knowing where he's going to be at physically to begin the season is a help, because you can put him in the slot. That's where he's going to be most comfortable. Long term, do the Chiefs want to see if they can expand his role and play him on the outside as well? Sure, they will try that. But, he played exclusively pretty much in the slots rather at Utah State. So, that's what he's going to play here. That's what he's going to learn first. And that's where Rice was having a lot of his success as a rookie. But then, the Chiefs were starting to move him outside more. Hey, with Hollywood being around, does this mean that you're going to be playing Rice primarily in the slot? Maybe Royals is the guy who backs him up or even fills in for him until he's ready to be 100%. I'm fully expecting that Rashee Rice is going to be ready to play in week 1. We'll see, but it could be close, but I think he's going to be ready to play in week 1. If that's the case, then, Jalen Royals at least is a guy who can spell him and, because you don't need to be asking Rashee Rice fresh coming off the injury to be playing every single snap. You can let him build up his snap count and his workload and filter in Royals as you get there. And then that allows Royals to, focus on the slot and then build up his snap count as far as being able to be a guy who can play other positions. We'll see. Maybe that won't happen. Maybe he won't be able to do that. Maybe he's just going to be a slot guy and a special teamers. And if that's the case, that's okay. We'll see how he kind of matures and develops and grows and everything. There's some concerns that's kind of the knock on him coming out, was maybe he's just a little bit too much one-dimensional and is not going to have that ability to kick outside. We'll see. But he does look like he's going to be a pretty effective slot receiver. And obviously he was a big play receiver in college.
And I think anytime you can add that, that's something that you have to do. But there's always a risk if he's not going to grow into what you're looking for, right? It's not the only risk that's in this class. What are they, and how will we judge this in 3 years? Coming up next. Did you ever open your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. And that's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your personal CFO giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all of your accounts, investments, spending all in one place, so that you can stop managing your money and start building your wealth. Everything is in one spot. It's super convenient. You don't have to do multiple apps. You can go one place and get everything done that you need to know for your finances. Take control of those finances with Monarch Money. Use our code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off of your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL, all one word, for half off your first year. Value is one thing, risk is another. If you want to be really risky, go read my spelling at NFL33.com. That's always an adventure. You can get the real deal at Matt's side at ChiefsDigest.com, though, so check that out, and you can always find me at RGR Football. Matt, risk is something that's involved in every pick. This is the draft. Nothing is a sure thing, asked Shedeur Sanders. What you have to look at is just how risky that selection is. We talked a ton about Josh Simmons before the draft. And as we come to find out, it was a very late process, not only the 30 visit, but multiple calls, Zooms, et cetera, to keep in touch with him, see how he's doing. That to me says, hey, we want to do this, but we're not 100%. We got to monitor every step of the way because of the inherent risk. I think it's a great draft class. But if that's got to be at the top of the list of risks, does it not?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we talked about this risk, and I mean, I was pretty frank. I would not have taken this risk. I mean, but I understand why Brett Veach did, and the way that the draft unfolded, I understand it even more because, after Josh Simmons, where's the cutoff? I mean, the group of tackles that came after Simmons, it's probably going to be once again a lot of right tackles, maybe some guards. And certainly probably some players who just aren't going to be able to make it, wouldn't be able to make it at left tackle. I mean, Ariante Ursary, I think was, probably maybe in that kind of next group, and he's going to be a good player, but is he a potential franchise left tackle? No. And that's how the Chiefs view Josh Simmons. If healthy, is a franchise left tackle, and that's what he can be. And I think that the key to the risk, and and the Chiefs, and once again, another thing I stress throughout this entire process is that the NFL teams know a lot more than we do. They've been able to examine things. And I can only go off the fact that, hey, torn patella tendons, they're not good. This players are almost never, and I almost want to just take out the word almost and just say never, but I don't want to be blanket that way, because, hey, some guys have come back and played. I mean, and sometimes we don't know about guys who have had patella tendon injuries until much later and much longer. Having this conversation during this draft process, I learned that Brandon Graham with the Eagles had a torn patella tendon in 2010. That was never reported. It was never included. It was always talked about as the ACL, but he had the patella tendon repaired. And this is the thing about NFL players. If they don't have to reveal that they had a patella tendon repaired, they're not going to. No. I mean, and especially 15 years ago, it was so bad that's just, it was a career death sentence. So you didn't want that out if you didn't have to. So we don't necessarily have all the data. But again, if you look at the players who've had them, look at Jimmy Graham after his patella tendon, never had the same numbers again. Some guys came back. Victor Cruz came back and played 1 year and done. There've been a lot of players who haven't been. I think Maurice Claiborne, I think, was also in that kind of category. Came back, but was done very quickly. Most players have short careers after it. The fact that he's young is a great, sign. And the Chiefs put a lot of work into that. Andy Reid mentioned that, not only was there the check at the combine, there was the recheck by the NFL after the combine, which is, once again, pretty common for players who have had injuries, or there were things that were suspicious, sketchy on the original exam at the combine. They bring him in for the 30 visit. So they had Rick Burkholder and all their orthopedists to go over him, had more MRIs done. So, I mean, they've looked at the kid and his knee from here to kingdom come. So, I mean, you can't say that they didn't do their due diligence. But, here was the key question for me that the Chiefs had to answer, which is, if he is not 100%, which he's not going to be. I mean, if you're hoping, maybe he's 99% of the guy he used to be, but he might be 95, he might be 90. The question is, can he be an effective player even if he's less percentage than he once was? And the Chiefs feel like, yes, that he will be. That even if he's not 100% and a franchise left tackle, that even at 90, 95%, he's still going to be a really good left tackle. Maybe not all pro, maybe he will be. I don't know. And Brandon Graham's a great example, because Brandon Graham played 15 more years after the injury. Now, would he have been a Hall of Famer without the patella tendon? I don't know. But if you get 15 years out of Josh Simmons at left tackle, you'd be pretty happy with that.
Yeah, and no one more so than Patrick Mahomes, because you can see it from here. He might have one more left tackle in him. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, and we'll just have to see how that goes. I feel like the risk was as mitigated as it could be. Obviously, like you said, they had the rechecks, medical information at their discretion. All that set aside, how do you feel post-draft about the selection versus what you did before the selection? You still would not have taken the chance, right?
I wouldn't have taken the chance, but if I'm Brett Veach, it sounds like the Chiefs are doing it the way that I would have said that they have to do it. Because let's look. Right now, the Chiefs are not expecting him to start at left tackle this year. If Josh Simmons is starting at left tackle for this team this year, something's gone wrong, because either Jalen Moore stinks or Jalen Moore is hurt. And both those things are bad things. I mean, and Josh Simmons isn't going to play right tackle. There's not going to be any of that. If I think if more than likely, if something were to happen to Juwan Taylor, I mean, you might say Jalen Moore play right tackle, move over and put Josh Simmons. And that might be one of the other only ways that Josh Simmons is starting. But they're going to take their time with him. And if that means that he can be just the backup, I mean, I think it also means you're probably going to carry 4 tackles, because you're going to want somebody else who can be a swing, left or right side, because they're going to want to keep Josh Simmons purely on the left side, focused on that completely and totally, because that's what they want him to be, as a left tackle. They're not training him to be a swing tackle. They're training him to be a left tackle. So he's not going to do any other double duty or anything like that. But, I think it's unlikely that we're going to see him do anything during OTAs. Possibly, don't be surprised if he even starts training camp on non-football injury, that they just want to keep the option open so that when he does get to St. Joe, that he's at least pacing himself. They don't push him too early, and then they lose some options for him. If you put a guy on the NFI to start training camp, you can keep him on that through the season. Once you take him off, you lose that option. So, you really don't want to lose any options when it comes to Josh Simmons. So they're going to take it easy with him. And if that means he doesn't play a snap this year, that's exactly the way that you should be preparing. And, and honestly, I mean, in a dream scenario for the Chiefs, if this season plays out to the best of its possible conclusion, then I think that what you're going to see is Jalen Moore's going to play left tackle for you. Josh Simmons is not going to play at all. He's just going to get healthy and learn. And if everything goes great and Jalen Moore plays fantastic, great. Jalen Moore is going to be a great right tackle next year, and Josh Simmons is going to be your left tackle.
And that was the show we were going to do next week, because I agree with you. But I will say this. We'll get to that next week, folks, and we'll elaborate on what this plan and the evolution and what it did to this process next week. But last thing for me, and simple number answer, Matt. You don't have to. I'm not trying to put you on the spot. I'll go on the spot. I think this 53 cut down day, we see 10 offensive linemen kept for specifically some things that you just said. What do you think?
Yeah, pretty good chance, because you're going to have to keep 4 tackles. You got your other 3 starters, so you're up to 7. You're going to need, you're going to probably need 1 exclusive center just to be, or at least somebody who specializes in that. So I think that's pretty much a carved out spot for Hunter Nordzad on the team, because he's the best center on this team after that. So there's your 8. Need another interior guy. It's going to be 9 or 10 for sure. And I would bet on 10, especially because, again, the Chiefs, not only do they have some guys we haven't really probably even calculated in, the loser of the left guard fight between, and I'm going to include Nordzad in that too, because I think he's going to work his way into that conversation.
I think so,
with Suamati-Ia and with Caliendo. You got Driscoll coming back from last year, and the Chiefs got a couple of undrafted rookie free agents that they think are going to compete for jobs too. I'm getting the names crossed up, so I'm probably not going to throw out one right there, because I'll end up probably mentioning one of the defensive tackles. Yeah, Dalton Cooper, I think, is the defensive tackle that they really like. But it's going to be. I think it's going to be really good competition this year.
I'm looking forward to it. I know that you guys are too. Make sure you check out ChiefsDigest.com. 41 is the mic, and Chiefs Digest here on the YouTube platform. Matt, thanks for your time and giving us your insight that we can't get it anywhere else.
Always a pleasure, Ryan. Take care, my friend.
Have a good one, folks. Thank you for being with us. Tomorrow, a little bit more on what's going on with this roster, some fifth-year options. Don't miss it. And I'll break it down on Friday and give you all my insights about where we're going next. Thank you for being with us today, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.